Were Erica and Charlie Kirk really getting divorced, and did they file papers just days before his assassination?
A priest that came over to pray over Charlie and Erica's marriage the night before is what I am told.
What if the story everyone was told about a happy, prayerful, rock-solid marriage was never the full picture? What if the real story was already being filed away in a courtroom 4 days before Charlie Kirk was unalived? Now stay with me, because this one goes deep. Charlie Kirk's own sister, Mary Kirk, is now being connected to reports that Charlie had allegedly filed for divorce just 4 days before his death. Not separated informally, not a rough patch. Filed paperwork. And the moment you sit with that, everything that's been bothering people about this story suddenly starts to snap into place. The ring situation, the sleeping arrangements, the priest visit, the will, it all connects. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, because we have to build this properly so you understand exactly why so many people refuse to let this go. Interview. See, ever since Charlie was unalived, the public narrative around Erica has been carefully constructed. The grieving but resilient widow, the woman who carries on his legacy, the strong, composed, polished face of Turning Point. And for a while, people accepted that. But over time, viewers started pushing back, hard, in the comments. And the concern wasn't just grief-shaming, it was something more specific. People were saying the energy felt off, not like loss, like liberation. And here's the part people miss. It wasn't 1 or 2 trolls. It was a pattern across multiple appearances, at multiple platforms, multiple months. That doesn't happen for no reason.
My husband did something very simple. He talked to people. You're going to be murdered for talking to people. He didn't go after people.
The night before Charlie was unalived, according to Erica herself, he didn't sleep in their bedroom. A man who had just returned from an international trip to Asia, someone who reportedly missed his family, someone who had been traveling and away, and instead of coming home to his own bed, he ends up in his daughter's room. That's the story, and it wasn't pieced together by online sleuths, and that detail came directly from Erica's own account.
So I said, I want you to have a good night's sleep. Go ahead and sleep in her room. And I'll turn the air down so it's nice and cozy in there. And I just want you to get a good night's sleep so you can be amazing tomorrow.
Come on, think about that for a second. You've been apart, you're finally home, and you sleep separately. That's not normal reunion behavior. That's not jet lag being polite. That is 2 people who are, at minimum, not in a warm place with each other. And she framed it sweetly. Don't get me wrong, the tone was soft, the words were careful. But the behavior underneath the words is what people keep circling back to. And then we get to the ring, because this detail is genuinely hard to explain away. According to what's been reported, Charlie wasn't even wearing his wedding ring. Not during the final stretch. And the specific detail that keeps getting mentioned is that the day before he was unalived, he allegedly went back into their bedroom and physically put it on, like he needed to remember to wear it, or like he knew he'd be seen publicly and wanted the image to hold. Now, does that confirm anything on its own? No. But stacked on top of everything else, it builds a very uncomfortable picture. And then there's the wedding photo, which I think is actually the most telling piece of all. When people first noticed that the wedding photo had disappeared from Charlie's home set, the immediate reaction online was to blame Erica. People were saying she took it down out of spite, that she was erasing him, that it was a power move after his death. But here's where the narrative flipped. According to what started circulating, and this is disputed, it was allegedly Charlie himself who removed that photo. Not Erica. Charlie. Because he was upset. Because he didn't want it there anymore. Now think about what that means if true. Removing your own wedding photo from your own workspace is not absent-mindedness. That is an intentional act of distancing. That is someone who has mentally and emotionally begun the process of separation. And if the divorce filing reports are accurate, it fits a pattern of someone quietly preparing to move on. But we need to talk about the priest, because I think this is where the whole thing shifts from suspicious to genuinely strange. The initial framing around why Father Chris Allard allegedly visited the Kirk home the night before Charlie was unalived was tied to safety concerns, Threatening letters, campus tensions, the usual background noise that came with being Charlie Kirk. And look, that stuff was real. Critics wrote about him constantly. But here's the problem with that explanation. That was not new. That was not a sudden escalation that required emergency spiritual intervention on one specific night. Left-wing critics had been doing that for years. So why that night?
A priest that came over to pray over Charlie and Erica's marriage the night before is what I am told.
Because according to what's been reported, and this is the detail that changes the whole frame, Father Chris Allar allegedly did not come to pray about security. Yet he reportedly came to pray over their marriage. A marriage that, based on everything being pieced together, was already allegedly in serious trouble. If that's accurate, then the final night before Charlie's death was not defined by outside threats. It was defined by what was already fracturing inside that house. And here's where it gets even messier. There's a clip that keeps resurfacing, and it's from Charlie's own show. Someone asked a simple question about their marriage. Not complicated, not invasive. How long have you been married? Basic. And Erica reportedly paused, visibly, like the question caught her. Charlie had to step in and fill the gap.
This one's easy. How long have you been married, and when did you know it was time to get married?
We've been married since 2021. We laugh about this because our dates are so messed up because of babies.
Now, she laughed it off. She blamed mom brain. She talked about juggling kids and losing track of dates, and maybe for some people, that lands. But their official wedding date was May 8th, 2021 in Scottsdale, Arizona. That's not a decade ago. That is recent. That is the kind of date, the kind of day, that tends to stay with you. And when someone hesitates on that, even briefly, even laughing, people notice. And speaking of things people notice, let's talk about Erica's own account of her life before Charlie, because this matters for credibility. She has publicly claimed that for 5 full years before meeting Charlie, she wasn't dating anyone. Not a single person. No relationships. Completely off the market. But according to sources and those who allegedly knew her during that period, that account reportedly does not hold up under scrutiny. There are allegedly names from that time that contradict the timeline she described.
Handsome. You look gorgeous. Are you fixing my... Got a little bacon. Babe, that's deep in there. Give them a cleavage? People want cleavage.
Now, none of that is confirmed. None of it has been proven. But here's why it matters. When someone is willing to reshape the narrative around their past, it makes it much harder to take the current narrative at face value. And the current narrative right now. Is a widow who stepped into a powerful position immediately after her husband's unaliving, looking very composed, very certain, very in control. Because that's exactly what happened next. Erica Kirk stepped into the role of TPUSA CEO following Charlie's death. And the response from some insiders reportedly was not quiet. According to former employees and people close to the organization, there were claims that staff members were pushed out or let go after expressing views about Charlie's death that didn't align with the direction being set. Wrongful termination concerns were allegedly raised by some of those impacted, though nothing has been officially proven in court. Nothing has been adjudicated. But the accounts kept surfacing.
My name is Aubrey Leitch, and I am the former public relations manager for Turning Point USA. And I was a part of the recent kind of mass termination group at Turning Point.
And what made viewers particularly uneasy wasn't just the staffing changes, it was the tone. There's a clip circulating where Erica discusses the future of the organization, the growth, the opportunity, the next chapter. And the way she described it, the energy around those words, struck observers as surprisingly upbeat, strikingly forward-looking for someone in the position she was in.
Gave assurance to people that Turning Point USA is continuing, and it is. I mean, we are so blessed to have more work than we even could ever dream of.
To be clear, she did attempt to contextualize those comments, but critics said the delivery didn't match the moment. And when you're already tracking the ring, the separate bedroom, the missing photo, the divorce filing rumors, the priest visit, and now this, every word gets weighed differently. And that brings us to Mary Kirk, because she's been quietly circling this story for a while now. Mary is described as very different from her brother. Where Charlie was loud, political, and public, Mary has been characterized as moderate, arts-oriented, and deliberately low profile. Some online have gone further and labeled her ideologically closer to the political left, which would make the Kirk family dynamics already complicated even before any of this happened. And now there's been chatter, unconfirmed chatter, that Mary may have interests or connections tied to the question of who leads TPUSA going forward. Here's the part that also caught people's attention. According to observations from those following the public proceedings around Charlie's death, and his parents and Mary were reportedly not visibly present or involved in certain aspects of what followed. Whether that reflects private family decisions or something more complicated, nobody outside that circle can say for certain. But it was noticed. And in a case where every detail is being examined, absence gets interpreted. Now layer onto all of this the will. Long before the divorce filing reports started circulating, there were already quiet whispers that Erica had allegedly been removed from Charlie's will. That didn't come out of nowhere. Rumors like that don't generate themselves. They tend to surface when something has actually shifted behind the scenes, when someone who had reason to know something let something slip. Does that confirm the will story? No. Does it make you look at the divorce filing claim differently? Completely. Because here's what we're actually looking at when you step back. A reportedly missing ring, a husband sleeping in the wrong room the night before his death, a wedding photo allegedly removed by his own hand, a priest allegedly called not for safety, but for a marriage in crisis, divorce papers allegedly filed 4 days before the unaliving, alleged removal from a will, and a widow who, by multiple accounts, transitioned into one of the most powerful roles in conservative media with remarkable speed and composure. None of that is a verdict. None of that is proven. Every one of those points is alleged, reported, disputed, or unverified in a court of law. But all of it together? That's a pattern. And patterns in a case like this don't just dissolve on their own. Paper trails don't disappear, especially when the person at the center of them was one of the most publicly visible figures in the country. If those divorce documents exist, they will surface. It's a question of when, not if. And when they do, every single piece of this story gets reread through a completely different lens. So let me ask you something, and I want your honest answer in the comments below. If the divorce filing is eventually confirmed, does that change how you see everything that happened in those final days? Or do you think this is still being misread? Because right now, we are still working with pieces, and something tells me we are nowhere near the last piece.